Right, welcome back to Danny's Maths Hub. Now today is an extra video all about transformations, but not how we actually complete a transformation, but how we can find out what transformation has happened. Because sometimes in the GCSE they may not ask you to complete a transformation, but ask you to describe what transformation actually happened. So today, all we're going to look at is how can we spot which transformation happened. Now we're going to start off with a reflection. We know if two shapes have been reflected because they're looking at each other. So if we look at this example now, all the points are pointing at each other. They're exactly the same shape, but they're facing each other. So if we're given two shapes that are looking at each other, that are pointing at each other, we know they've been reflected. Now, if it's a reflection question, it'll be a 2-mark answer. And the 2 marks come from A, stating that it's been a reflection. So we write a reflection. And the second point comes from finding the reflection line or the mirror line. And we simply find that by looking at our shape, picking 2 points on the shape that are the same. So for instance, these 2 corner points here, measuring the distance between them. So in this case, it's 2 squares, which means the mirror line has to be in the middle of that. This line here, our x equals 1 line. So if it's a reflection, they're pointing at each other, and we get 1 point for stating it's a reflection. And then we find the distance between them and half it, and that line there is our mirror line. Now, if it's a rotation, the shape will still remain the same. However, it'll be pointing in a different direction and not at our shape. So if we look here, this shape is exactly the same, and this point is pointing in that direction. However, the same point on that shape is pointing in a different direction. We get 3 marks on a rotation question, and those 3 marks come from A, stating it's been rotated. So you get 1 point just for pointing out it's been rotated. The second point comes from stating how many degrees. So in this case, our shape has been rotated 90 degrees. Can we see it was pointing this way? It's now pointing down, which means it's been rotated 90 degrees. And our third point comes from finding the center of rotation, that center point. Now, there is one way of finding the center point, but it's quite a complex method, and you're never actually asked to do that method in the GCSE paper. But I will make a little video just showing you how you can work that out by using a ruler and a compass. In your GCSE paper, the center point tends to be quite obvious and around a certain area. And sometimes you just have to do a little bit of trial and error. So for instance, our center point is here because if we rotate it 90 degrees around that point, it will end up there. Now the question usually asks you to say, map what transformation happened to map A onto shape B, so we know we're traveling from here to there. However, if it was the other way round, we could either say it went anti-clockwise, couldn't we? Or we could say it still went clockwise, but it went 270 degrees. But you need to make sure you state those 3 things. But unfortunately, finding the actual center of rotation, it's a bit of trial and error in the GCSEs. But like I say, if you are someone who likes to find an exact method for it, I will post another video at a later date showing you how to do that. But it's never expected of you in the GCSE paper. They expect you to just trial and error it, which sounds unusual, I know, but that's just the way it is. Now we know a shape has been translated if the shape remains exactly the same, pointing in exactly the same direction. However, it's just in a different point on our grid. So for example, with this, the shapes are exactly the same. They're both pointing towards me and they're both pointing out there. They're still exactly the same size, so this has been translated. Now again, the question we usually ask, how do we map or transform shape A onto shape B even, Well, we simply look at our vector. We have to put this in vector form. So if we start at shape A, do we go that way or that way? Because that tells us if it's positive or negative. In this case, we're going this way, so it's positive. And then we look, how many squares do we have to go across? And then, do we go up? If so, it's positive. Or do we go down? If so, it's negative. We can see this one's going down, so it's negative. So a translation question is also usually worth 2 marks. You get 1 for stating the translation and 2 for the vector, or your second mark for the vector. Sometimes if the vector is a little bit more tricky, they could also give you 2 marks for the vector and 1 for stating translation, so it could possibly be a 3-mark question, but more commonly it's a 2-mark question. And last but not least, if we're asked to describe a transformation and one shape is bigger than the other, well then it's an enlargement. And we get 3 points again for describing this. 1 point comes from just stating an enlargement. The second point will come from stating the scale factor. So if we're going from shape A to shape B, pick one of the lengths. What do we have to times that length by to get the other length? So in this case, we can see that we had to multiply our lengths by 2. So it's a scale factor of 2. And then we have to find that center of enlargement. Now, to find the center of enlargement on a question like this, there's actually quite a really nice method. If we take our ruler and connect all corresponding corners on our shape, they'll all meet at one point, the center of enlargement. And let me show you what I mean. If we connect that edge of our shape with the edge of our original shape, and we let the line carry on a little bit, and we do the same for this corner, and we do the same for that corner, look where they all meet. They've all met at one point, and that's our center of enlargement. So to get your 3 points to describe an enlargement, we state A, it was an enlargement, we state B, the scale factor, and then we find our center of enlargement using these lines. And that's it, ladies and gents. It was quite a short recording, I know, but there's only 4 transformations that you can be done. And if you already know how to do them by doing the practice questions from the last 4 videos, well then actually reading them off should be quite basic and straightforward. Reflections are looking at each other. Rotations have been moved away from each other. Translations have stayed exactly the same but moved in slight directions. And enlargements have got bigger, or in some cases with a fraction of a scale factor, it got smaller. And that's our transformations. Now, what I can't stress to you enough, if you are asked these questions, but you don't know exactly how much it's been enlarged by, you don't know exactly where it's been reflected, you don't know where the center of rotation is, that's fine, but still state the obvious. If you know it's definitely been reflected, at least write reflection down because you get 1 mark. If you write rotations down, it's been rotated, you get 1 mark. If you know it's been translated, it's 1 mark. And if you know it's been enlargement, that's 1 mark. Just for writing one of those words down, you get 1 mark as long as it's correct. You may not know all the other bits of information or can't quite work it out, but you can still pick up 1 mark by stating the obvious, whether it's reflected, rotated, translated, or enlarged. But then if you are able to find out a next step, then also fill that in. Just because you may not be able to find all 3 bits of information for some of them, doesn't mean you can't pick up any marks. So always try and write down as much as you possibly can for those questions, even if it is just one of the obvious 4: reflection, rotation, translation, or enlargement. And that's all from me. I did promise you I'd do an extra video. It's not going to be out here in the sun. It'll be on a piece of paper, me showing you the method to find the exact center of rotation on a more complicated question. But I can't stress enough, that's not expected from you on a GCSE paper. I'm purely doing that video for anyone who may be interested to see the method and may want to try it out themselves. Hope you're having a great day. Do try the questions below for this, and I've also linked the other 4 videos below. Until the next video, stay safe and enjoy.